Hi, welcome to another episode of Mildred Rides. Today I'm really pleased to be talking to Hannah from Queercyclist. She is a fellow YouTube vlogger who I've been following pretty much since the beginning of her channel, which started about a year ago. Hannah's probably the person who, more than anyone else, has inspired me to actually start my own YouTube channel. So it was a real privilege to get to chat to her about her own journey, starting up her channel, what the highlights have been, what the challenges have been. And really the aim of this conversation was to kind of demystify what it takes to start your own YouTube channel, with the hope that if there's anyone out there who thinks that they don't really see themselves represented when they watch YouTube channels. Obviously this is relating to cycling generally, but it could apply to anyone really. If you really enjoy consuming cycling media, but you don't really see yourself represented, or you feel like, you've got something to say, you've got a story you want to tell, I hope that what comes out of this conversation with Hannah is that it will encourage you to actually do that and start your own channel. In a sport that's so dominated by white men, and considering that cycling media in general is dominated by white men, I think it's really important that we have a variety of voices telling a variety of stories. That's partly why I started my channel, and I want to see more people using this platform to show that lots of people cycle. They don't all fit into a cookie cutter, and that's what makes it so brilliant. So I'm just going to switch over to my conversation with Hannah. Unfortunately, because we are on separate continents, we did have to chat over Zoom. I will also have to ask your forgiveness. Because we're in two different time zones, Hannah's 5 hours behind where I am. It was about midday-ish for her, and it was the evening for me. I have to apologise for the lighting, especially for my part of the video. The lighting is terrible. I haven't invested in any ring lights or anything, so bear with me and please forgive me. But enjoy this really lovely chat that I had with Hannah. Enjoy. Hi, Hannah.
Hello.
You have just hit your 1 year channelversary.
Yes, 1 year.
Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you so much.
How does it feel?
Great. I did not know that I was going to make it this far. So I'm really pleased with having been here a year. It's been a journey. It's been wonderful.
Well, I'm really glad that you've made it this far and that you're going to continue. I really love your videos. I really love your content. I find you such a joy to watch. So it's just a real pleasure to actually get to chat to you. I want to kind of just pick your brains and find out about your journey. Through, starting up your YouTube channel, and the highs and the lows and the what you've learned along the way, with a hope that someone, maybe one person, will watch this video and think, maybe I could have a try. So I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, what was your motivation when you started Queercyclist?
Yeah, so I started Queercyclist mostly because I wanted to make the bike content that I wanted to see. And that was mostly someone who was queer talking about bikes. There's a lot of great cycling content on YouTube, but it's mostly straight people. And I wanted to throw my hat in the ring and be okay, well, I'm queer as hell. So and I love bikes. And so I'm going to start a YouTube channel. It was also, I really needed a cathartic outlet last January. I was just going through a whole lot, as we all were after 2020. And I wanted some kind of creative outlet that involved something I really loved, which is cycling. Yeah, and so that's why I started the channel. It has been much harder than I thought it would be. But
why? Tell me about that.
Man, well, a couple of reasons. First and foremost, I have zero experience whatsoever editing videos. I've never done it before. I have no background in cinematography. I'm getting my PhD in English, and I've been an English teacher my entire career. So I have really never touched video, even TikToks or Reels or anything like that. And also just editing takes forever, and it's a huge learning curve, especially when you move from iMovie to a more professional video editor.
Yeah.
And being really consistent making videos, which I have not been, is really hard. Doing it every single week and getting into a consistent rhythm, because it's really being consistent that allows you to grow on YouTube. That's really hard. It's hard to be consistent.
Yeah. How long would you say you spend when you're creating a video? How much time in your week do you have to dedicate to it?
It varies and it's changed over time. So I think my first vlog ever, like the first one I have on my channel, I think it took me like 20 hours to make, and it's like a 3-minute video. I've gotten it down now to about 7 or 8 hours, but if it's a little bit longer, or if it's like a weird day of filming and I'm kind of in a weird mood and have lots of like mess ups and have to repeat myself over and over, it might take up to 10 or 12. But then again, my videos aren't typically that long. So they're, I don't know, 8 to 12 minutes generally.
Yeah.
So if it were longer, I'm sure it would take longer, but it varies depending on how much footage I have.
And that's everything from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Do you spend a lot of time like prepping and planning your content beforehand? Like how do you come up with your content ideas, and how do you sort of go from that journey of, you know, an idea of maybe a title to creating the video?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have a Trello board, and I like just kind of dump in one board all of my like half-baked ideas. Some of them surface through, some of them don't. And then I make a content planner for like a few months and kind of plan out what exactly it is that I'm going to do. Sometimes those come through and sometimes they don't. Sometimes I like on a whim, I'm like, oh, I'm going to make this video. And then that happens. But I generally, once I have the idea and I know I'm going to make a video like this, I write an outline and a like half script. Generally, I find that times that I've written a script, I sound like I'm reading a script. So it's easier to just do an outline for me. And at the beginning, when I was like really uncomfortable talking in front of a camera, a script worked better for my comfort level. But now I can talk a little bit more off the cuff at least. But I have found that if I have zero outline whatsoever and just am like, blah, 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 you know, it's absolute chaos and like a shit video. And like there are a few videos I filmed that I've just like started over because they're just too messy and like impossible to get some kind of storyline out of.
I totally relate to that. It sounds like a good approach. Which other YouTube vloggers do you follow, and do you kind of create, you come up with your ideas sort of in response to things that you see and think, I could do that from a different angle? Or that's kind of two questions in one. Feel free to answer them separately if you want.
Yeah, I think those are both really good questions. Okay, so my absolute favorite cycling YouTuber is Pathless Pedaled. And
yes.
like I really like Russ and Laura's content because it's made for people who are like not broy roadies, and it just like it's really accessible and it makes cycling accessible. And I really love that. And I am like not a professional cyclist. I just like riding my bike a lot, and I am super nerdy and like really like the aesthetic of bicycles and want to celebrate that. And I think that it is a joy that should be accessible to everyone. And so that's why I really love that channel so much. There are some hardcore professional cyclists that I really like watching. I really like the Vegan Cyclist. He creates like pretty good videos. Have you ever watched his stuff? Yeah. His like story, the storytelling aspect, it is very broy, very like white cis straight male content, but I think that he does a really good job at telling stories. I really like Katie Kookaburra, Juliet Elliott, I think is her name. Yeah. And yeah, there are like a number of cyclists. Oh, I like Safa Brian. I know it's just like watching people like go down hills. Like it's really entertaining. But I mean, as far as cycling content is concerned, I like really, really like Pathless Pedaled. And aspire to make videos like kind of like that, but with my own perspective and spin on it. My favorite kind of cycling content is honestly the ones that tell really good stories. So content in general, if you can tell a good story, then you never click away. You know, no one is ever going to click away. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I like that. Okay. So actually, so I'm going to go back to the beginning. So when you first decided you were going to start your YouTube channel, how much prep kind of went into, like, you decided, okay, I'm going to start my own channel. How long did it take you to come up with a name? How did you decide what it was going to be about? What kind of investments did you make? Like, take me through that journey from the inception to actually getting going.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it was over around like Christmas, New Year's time in 2020, and my uncle had a GoPro, and I'd never used a GoPro before. And I was like on my bike with it, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm going to get one. I bought the Hero 9. I was like, I think I'm going to start a YouTube channel, and then started it and like came up with Queercyclist because the name hadn't been taken. And I was like, this is really on brand with what I want to do. So I just like scooped up the Queercyclist name for all of the social media handles.
Nicely done.
Yeah. And I knew that I wanted to make like cycling vlogs and like product reviews of stuff that I use frequently that is maybe harder to find reviews of. Or like I had a different take on a particular thing that I like to use. And yeah, that was kind of it. I mean, I knew that I wanted to create, or rather provide a queer perspective on like cycling things. So I haven't really leaned into the queerness of it because I am still kind of figuring out what I'm doing. And you said earlier, you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I still feel that way. And like sometimes I'm just like, man, I like really don't know what I'm doing. So I think that 2022, as I've really become more comfortable in front of the camera and making content and having seen like what lands and what doesn't with a particular audience, I think that as the year moves on, I'm going to start like really making my channel more gay. So
amazing. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, I have some like plans and ideas.
Okay. Without giving too much away, obviously, because you've got to keep your ideas to yourself. But like, how do you envision making your channel more gay?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? What does it look like to you?
Yeah. I think tapping into or referencing things in queer culture and queer life that you don't really see in like a lot of cycling content. I mean, like there's so many queers that ride bikes, and so much cycling media is really, really like, it is like the gender binary. It is very straight. It is very cis. And I think there are a lot of incredible people like making moves and working really hard to change that. And so the way that I really want to bring a queer perspective into that is just changing some of the language around how we talk about cycling clothing, or just like in cycling in general. It's just, going to something that really bothers me is like, going to like Pearl Izumi or Rafa or any of those websites. And it is so like men and women, and the like selections are so different. And it's just like, wait a second, like this doesn't like, this is not for me. This is not for, people who are non-binary or trans. Like, it's just really, it's a world that is not made for you if you are not cis and straight. So just making like cycling more accessible to queer, non-binary, trans women, femme people by just making content about the things that we care about is one way. I'm also really interested in having conversations with people, as you are, queer cyclists. And so have like some ideas for down the road that I don't want to give away because I'm like notorious for saying I'm going to do something and then don't. But I have some ideas that I plan for later in the year. And I think ultimately with Queercyclist, I would really like it at some point down the road to be more of a collective. I, as a cis white person, should not be the only face of Queercyclist, and I don't want to be. And so, at some point down the road, I would like to expand this to be more of a collective rather than just me like jabbering at the camera. So those are kind of my visions for the next couple of years if I can like stick with it. I really enjoy doing it, so I think that I'll be able to get there. But yeah, that's kind of what I envisioned for this channel.
That sounds amazing. I love that. I love the idea of making it collective. That's not something I'd even really thought of, to be honest, but like it makes perfect sense.
It is really exciting, and I'm excited to see where it'll go. I've gotten a lot of really good feedback from people, and I'm really excited to take some next steps with it whenever as I build an audience and have more access to like funds and like other resources as well.
When you first started your YouTube channel, how did you actually, like, obviously you must have had like a lot of excitement in getting started, but like, did you find it quite a scary process as well, like putting yourself out there? Talk me through how it felt.
Yeah. I mean, at first it wasn't, I guess like putting your first video up and it gets like 12 views and you're like, oh, like this is not a big deal. Like I'm not going to get any traction. And I think like it's gotten, scary isn't the word, but I guess I'm like more wary of the internet now, just because I get every once in a while, and I imagine that this will increase, or rather this is increased as my channel is increased, that I get like some homophobic comments. I like get some really nasty like DMs on Instagram. Yeah, I've gotten like some really creepy like DMs, and I'm just like delete, you can hide users from and comments from your YouTube comments. And so I've had to do that with a few. It's not like a barrage or anything, but every once in a while it's like, oh, like, right, someone will, I have a video where I'm like talking about wanting to look like a genderless blob when I'm riding my bike, and like someone commented like, nobody cares about your gender, and like, it's like, it's so
God.
It's like it's so dumb. Like occasionally I'll get like a slur, or something. Like it's like, the internet is full of trolls. But I think like that has made me, like, the first few comments that I got that were like relatively homophobic, I was like, okay, like it's a little bit triggering, and I'm just like, it's okay. Like I can just delete the comment. Like it's fine, But yeah, I think that's what I've been more aware of as my channel has grown, and I'm sure that I will like continue to have to deal with that as it grows more.
Oh man, I'm really sorry. I don't know why. It never really occurred to me that was happening to you. Of course it is, but like that sucks.
Yeah,
I'm really sorry.
It's okay. I mean, I think that it didn't really start happening until I hit like 800 or 900 subscribers, when it just like a few videos had like a few thousand views. And so and that is something that I like kind of anticipated might happen when I started, but I like really didn't think about it until like it actually happened, and I went to my comments and it's like, oh, like, that's not very nice. So, and I think that every YouTuber, or, everyone who makes YouTube videos eventually deals with like really nasty comments. And so that's like the main thing that I've dealt with. And like mansplainers is just like, which is what we deal with like all the time. But it's, people just being like, well, you said this, but I think this, and this is why it's better. And that's just like,
then go start your own channel.
Why don't you make a video about it, bro?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that when you start to get mean comments, you're doing something right. And that you're that like you're on the right track. You're never going to please everybody. You never know, like, you're always going to have someone who doesn't like you and isn't going to like the content that you make, and is going to be like, I'm going to use my anonymity to like make you feel bad about yourself. And that's when you know that like you're on the right way, and that you're doing something really like cool. And I think that the vast majority of comments that I get are really supportive, and any kind of feedback that I get is constructive, and a lot of it I really do appreciate. And like it's like 0.1% of people that that make some kind of nasty comment, and really just like it kind of throws you off. But it's just like I'm doing okay. Most of the support I get is really positive. So yeah, that's what I would say to that.
That's good. And like, as a year on, is there anything that you know now that you wish you'd known when you started?
That's a good question. I wish that I had known about batch filming, that you can film multiple videos in one sitting. And like, there's ways to make or streamline the process of putting out a video every week. I think the hardest thing about YouTube is being really consistent. Like if you really want to grow, and this is something that if you watch YouTube help channels, this is what they say, like consistency is key and quality is key. But that like, I wish that I had figured out the process for making videos a little bit sooner. And that you can sit and make a few videos at once. I also think one of the things that I got really stuck on was gear. I was like, oh, like I can't make a YouTube channel with just a GoPro, but I literally have a GoPro 9 and my phone, and that's what I have for now. I would eventually like to upgrade when I have the funds for it. But it's fine for now. And there are lots and lots of people out there who make great content with very low budget stuff. So you don't have to you don't need a bunch of like really expensive stuff and like really get caught in that hole of like, I need the latest and greatest. Like you don't need that at all. You can still do something really cool. Yeah.
What software do you use? How do you actually make your videos?
Yeah, so in terms of software that I use, I started out using iMovie, which is not terrible, but it's not awesome. So I moved after a couple of videos to DaVinci Resolve, which is a free professional editing software. It is a bit of a learning curve. I have a lot of tutorials that I continue to watch, but it's so much better than iMovie. So I use DaVinci Resolve. And then for all of my videos, I use a GoPro to film, and then I use my iPhone to usually to shoot B-roll. I have the Shure SM7B as my like studio mic or sit down video mic. And I record everything in GarageBand, which is the free software, on a Mac, and then sync it in DaVinci Resolve. And that's how I do it.
How easy is it to sync your audio and video?
When you have a separate audio and video file, you need some kind of anchor point to line up the audio lines, I guess, in your video and in your video's audio. So the easiest way to do that is to clap at the beginning of your video so that you line everything up perfectly. And it usually works for me every single time. It took me way too many videos to learn that.
That's a really good tip. Is there any other advice that you would give to someone who maybe doesn't see themselves represented in a lot of the videos they see on YouTube, the cycling videos, and they're thinking to themselves like, maybe I could have a go, maybe, I'd quite like to do this. Like, what would you say to them? Do you have any advice to to help them get started?
I would say do it. Like, go ahead and make the content. And even if your first videos are not very good, you're going to learn something with every single video that you make. And you're going to learn who you are in front of the camera within a couple of videos. And as you really get into it, and as you figure out what kind of content you want to make, you will it's really rewarding. It's really rewarding to figure out who you are, I guess, in front of a camera, and what you contribute to your community. And I've had a lot of people come up to me and be like, there are no other queer cycling YouTubers, at least not to my knowledge. I consume a lot of cycling content, and a lot of people have messaged me and be like, oh, I love this, yay, a queer person talking about bikes. So you never know who you're going to reach until you actually put yourself out there. And I think that's the hardest part, is clicking upload. But my advice is to do it, because you don't have a lot to lose in doing so.
Yeah, very true. Tell me some of the highlights of this year.
So I think one of the highlights is just meeting people and reaching people, and people having reached out to me being like, I love your videos. This is great. Can't wait for next week. And I'm like, wow, it's really validating because sometimes you just sit in your editing hole and you're like, what am I doing with my life? So I think what is really nice about YouTube is there's a lot of validation with numbers and people reaching out and commenting, and that feels really nice. I think my favorite video that I've made is when a bike packing trip becomes a bike glamping trip. And
Oh, yeah.
the reason that that's my favorite is because in the editing and making of that video, a lot of like things clicks for me. In terms of how to use music and how to tell a story. And so that was probably my favorite for that reason. And I'm hoping to make more videos similar to that as now that I like can ride my bike again, which is really nice.
That's nice. I really like that video. Yeah.
I would say, I would also say that it takes a while to get used to talking to the camera. And that is something that is uncomfortable at first. The first few videos, you can't see it, but my hands are shaking. Like I'm so nervous talking in front of the camera. And like my entire like career, my like real life job, I stand in front of students all day and talk. And so I don't really have a problem speaking in front of people. But for some reason, speaking in front of a camera is just like really nerve-wracking.
Well, it's just so different.
It's so different. And you like have to remember to like look at the camera. And you figure out what your persona is in front of the camera. And it takes a while. And it takes a while to really get a rhythm, but you will figure it out. But I will say when you start, it is uncomfortable if you haven't talked to a camera ever before, like me.
Yeah. So how did you build your community? Is it something that you've had to consciously think about, or has it just happened naturally?
So I think it's being really consistent with uploading content over time. And it's also consistently uploading content on Instagram too, because a lot of people at the moment, like a lot of people go from my Instagram to my YouTube channel. I've also had a few videos posted on the Radivist, which has brought in a lot of people in traffic, which is really nice.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. So you can see in behind the scenes, you can see where your traffic is coming from. And so like I get a lot of people from the Radivist and then a lot of people from Instagram. But as I've gotten more consistent with my content, it's coming from YouTube, which is what you really strive for if you're trying to grow on YouTube. Yeah. And so it's really become it's become about consistency and then really trying to be really nice to people and responding to comments and that's comments. And I get a lot of DMs on Instagram too, and some emails occasionally, and just being kind to people, just responding, and just because there are people on the other side of those comments, and just really connecting with people about a love of bikes and riding and gear and nerding out about stuff. So that's been so rewarding. It's just the cool people like you that I've met through this endeavor. I mean, like a ton of people have just been like so wonderful and like really, really cool people doing really cool things that I've met through this. So just like being nice and compassionate, and that's what I try to do.
That's really good. And I can vouch for that, because I remember reaching out to you on Instagram and like just saying like, I really want to do what you do, but I don't know what to do. And you gave me so much advice, and that's a really good thing to do. Oh,
I am so honored that now I am on your channel. So I'm so flattered and honored. I mean it. I really mean it.
Exciting. Well, I'm really like honoured to have you here. Like, I'm just going to sit here and gush for an hour. But no one's going to want to watch that. So, Hannah, where can people find you online? Would you like to plug your channel and your social media, just in case they've not caught on just yet?
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube at Queercyclist. You can also find me on Instagram with the same handle, Queercyclist.
Is there anything else you want to like plug, I guess? Like, have you got anything sort of coming up that you're excited about?
So I am part of the leadership team of Radical Adventure Riders in Atlanta.
Yep.
And we are about to open a gear library in the West Side in Pittsburgh area of Atlanta. We are like, it's coming really soon. It's really exciting, and I'm going to make a video about it, and I've been like documenting the whole process. So stay tuned for that in the next like month or so, because it's really exciting. There's not a whole lot like it. So it's going to be really cool. I'm excited to share it with everyone.
I'm excited to find out more. That's amazing. That's so cool. Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go.
Thank you so much, Mildred. I appreciate it so much. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course ring the bell. I will be here again next week, and until then, have a great week and happy tailwinds.